So, this video is not going to be your typical review of the new Space Jam movie. It's not even going to be a review of the movie. I did see it for context, so I'll be talking about the movie itself briefly, but this video is going to be less about the movie and more about the retro-style beat-em-up they made for it. Yup, to my complete surprise, there's a tie-in game for the new Space Jam movie. Let's talk about all this, shall we? But first, I'm going to take a minute to talk about today's sponsor, and you'll never guess who it is. There is no doubt in my mind that you've heard of Raid Shadow Legends before, and there's no better time than now to check the game out for yourself from my link in the description on your phone or PC. Raid is free to play and has a little something for everyone. I personally love the thrill of unlocking new champions and then using them to take down my enemies. My current favorite champion is the Venom Mage, and if it's not obvious why, it's literally half Cobra, half Magic Boy. It's actually one of the new champions they've recently added to the game. And speaking of, this month, Raid's got a non-stop schedule of summer events and activities. We're talking special fusion events to get a brand new legendary champion, tournaments against other players, and much more. They've also released 5 new champions, and each of them look incredible. Raid's summer plans are just starting to heat up, and there are some giant updates coming very, very soon, so there's really never been a better time to get started. If you want to get a huge head start in Raid, all you have to do is click the link in the description or scan my QR code and you'll get an epic hero Chinoru, who, by the way, is super helpful in the Doom Tower. You'll get 200,000 silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get in game. But these rewards will only be available for the next 30 days, so you won't want to miss out. So what are you doing? Click the link in the description to get started today. And thanks again to Raid for sponsoring this video. Alright, so like I said, I saw the movie for context. I had decided that I wanted to do a video on the game, and so I figured that I at least needed to see this movie to be able to talk about the game properly. And so I went and saw it. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and say that it was good, but I think you guys are just mean. And this is coming from somebody that typically has no problem ripping media to shreds. Was it super corny? Yeah. Did it have a few really, really cringy parts in it? Yeah. But honestly, it did have quite a few actually funny parts, and for the most part, this just came off as a nice little father-son story family film. Obviously, LeBron wasn't some kind of great actor, but he wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, and the story was kind of cute. I don't think that it was the abomination that everybody seems to be saying it is. Also, the Foghorn Leghorn Daenerys Targaryen joke was legitimately funny. But anyway, I thought the movie was alright. I'm not gonna see it again, but I wasn't offended by it. It was entertaining, it was cute, and it wasn't like I did a video on the Emoji Movie. That movie was total dog shit, and that wasn't even like a so bad it's entertaining thing. It was just bad. This I was moderately entertained by. I thought it was kind of fun. Whatever. That's all I gotta say about the movie itself. Now on to the game. So for whatever reason, they decided to make a 16-bit side-scrolling beat-em-up, and honestly, it's actually pretty alright. It's nothing that's gonna blow your mind, and there are aspects to it that kind of break the game, but it's actually kind of fun. It's currently out for Xbox, and the best part is, it's literally free. You just download it. Now, like a typical beat-em-up, you can play co-op, but I didn't have anybody to play with, so I played alone. You can choose to play as LeBron, Bugs, or Lola Bunny, and then pick between one of several power-ups you can use after filling your special meter during the stages. Initially, you can only choose between a few of them, but as you play, you unlock new ones. I'm not sure if there's actually a difference between the 3 main characters you can play as, but I'll say they did feel slightly different. I'm not sure if that's just placebo, but Lola did feel a little faster to me, but I could just be crazy. Also, I will say that most of the pixel art in this game actually does look pretty good. Now, the game opens up with some old school cutscenes where it begins to explain the plot, which actually doesn't follow the plot of the movie, which I thought was kind of strange, but instead of following the movie plot where LeBron has to win the game to save his son, instead 16-bit Don Cheadle wants to take over the world and you need to collect something called the Legacy Code to stop him. The Legacy Code is split between multiple floppy disks that need to be collected by completing each stage. So now, if you've played a beat 'em up before, you won't be surprised to know that you need to fight your way through each stage, taking on waves after waves of enemies. Now, the game has most of your typical beat-em-up fare, like your standard melee attack and dash attack, but what's unique to this game is the basketball mechanic. You carry a basketball with you through each stage, which is used as a projectile weapon. You can throw it like normal, you can jump in the air and slam it down for an aerial attack, and you can also hold the button down to charge your throw and make the attack more powerful. Once you throw the ball, though, and it's out of your hands, you either need to hold the button down to call it back, or wait for it to be returned to you. I think this is a sensible and fair trade-off so that you don't just abuse the projectile. Now, the game is sort of easy during the 1 hour runtime, especially if you abuse the granny power-up, which literally gives you health items, and the special meter is so easy to refill that it kind of breaks the game. I actually needed to stop using the granny power-up just to make the game a little bit more difficult, but the color palette is really pleasing and vibrant, and all the set pieces and locations are actually pretty varied and look good aesthetically. The music is pretty good and catchy too. Most of these stages are your typical go from point A to point B and fight enemies in between affairs, but there's also a few spots that incorporate some platforming-esque elements and environmental hazards. There's actually kind of a surprising amount of detail at some points in the game too. Shockingly so, considering I'd think this would just be a cheap throwaway tie-in game. Like, for example, this elevator button panel at the beginning of Stage 3. I saw that the buttons each light up individually, and it took me only a few seconds to realize that they actually light up in succession to the beat of the background music. It's honestly a nice little detail that showed me that whoever worked on this game at the very least gave somewhat of a shit. It may be a small detail, but small things like that go a long way to show the player that care went into the game. Little bits of polish like that become very apparent. Now, the bosses in this game are the members of the Goon Squad, and if you didn't see the movie, they are what replaces the Monstars. Each one has a giant health bar, but all in all, they're pretty easy to take out. I'm just glad to see boss fights because it's definitely a much needed inclusion in a game like this. So you make your way through each stage and it's all pretty damn easy, all except for the very end of the final stage before the last boss. I don't know why, but I for some reason had a lot of trouble in like the final room right before the end of the stage after the rest of the game admittedly was laughably easy. Beat 'em ups are typically kind of mindless though, so it didn't really bother me at all. It was just kind of jarring when the difficulty randomly ramped up so steeply and so close to the end of the game. Now the final boss fight against Don Cheadle in a giant mech is actually pretty difficult. That or I just suck. Maybe it's a bit of both. Anyway, unlike the other bosses which you can mostly just wail on, you actually kind of have to learn the final boss's attack patterns, and you only get tiny windows of opportunity to deal damage. Once he slams his fist down, you have a small window of time to attack them, and then eventually a glass tube which houses the various floppy disks will spawn in the center of the arena, and you need to smash them to deal a chunk of damage. In between this though, you'll need to either avoid the boss's various attacks, which does take some dexterity, or fight off your typical wave of enemies. This is one of the instances where having the granny power-up is actually very, very helpful rather than cheap, because the boss fight is pretty long, and it does help to have some extra health on hand if you need it. Eventually though, if you're persistent, you'll beat him, and once you win, you actually get a new power-up card to use if you want to play through the game again. And then we get one more cutscene about teamwork and and then it shows you your total playtime. The final cutscene actually explains that the basketball game that takes place in the movie still needs to be played, so what I'm thinking is this story is supposed to be some sort of what-if prequel to the movie. Honestly, this is a fun little beat-em-up. It's nothing groundbreaking, obviously, but it definitely exceeded my expectations, which were unsurprisingly very low. I went into this thinking this would just be some throwaway game that's hardly more involved than a typical arcadey mobile game, but what I found was actually a pretty fun beat-em-up that's short, sweet, to the point, has a couple interesting mechanics, and good-looking visuals. There's no doubt in my mind that I'd have fun playing this with some friends, and with the game being as short as it is, it's easy to just pick up and run through with a couple people. And the best part is, it's free. If you have an Xbox, I'd say this is totally worth a playthrough. It's pretty fun. So if you have some time to kill, why not download it and try it out? It's a pretty good time. That's all I gotta say, really. Short video for a short game. I'll see you guys next time. And the movie wasn't that bad. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it and want to see more, there's a couple other videos right there you can check out. And if you want to see everything I upload, subscribe and then tap the bell icon. And if you want to help support the channel, I also have a Patreon right there too. Toodles.